So many of us were taught the same formula: focus harder, picture it more vividly, repeat the affirmations every morning, every night, until the universe finally hears you and delivers. That's what most of us were told about getting what we want. And yet, if you've tried it, you may already know how hollow it can feel. You put in the effort, you speak the words with sincerity, and still, life doesn't shift. The same patterns repeat. The same walls seem to stand in your way. This isn't because you're broken. It isn't because you lack discipline or desire. The truth is simpler, and perhaps more liberating. The very method we've been given is flawed at its core. You don't pull reality toward you like dragging a heavy object across a floor. You tune yourself to the reality that already exists, waiting quietly, on a different wavelength. When you understand that, everything changes. Think of it like a radio dial. The music you long to hear isn't hiding somewhere, refusing you. It's been broadcasting all along. But unless your receiver is tuned to the right station, you'll only get static. That's what life feels like when we're forcing, pushing, and commanding. Static, noise. But when you shift the frequency, suddenly the song is clear. The melody was there all the while, and you wonder why you spent so long straining. This is why chasing after what you want feels exhausting. Because in truth, the life you desire isn't running away from you. It isn't sitting in the distance, waiting for you to prove you're worthy. It is here, now, pulsing quietly on the vibration it always has. The real question is, are you resonating with it? So let's slow down together. Feel into this. The universe does not respond to words alone. It responds to vibration. You can say, I am abundant. I am abundant, 100 times a day. But if your nervous system is still locked in the vibration of fear, then fear is the only message the field can mirror back to you. Energy does not lie. The quantum field does not listen to your declarations. It listens to your signal. And what creates your signal? Not just your thoughts, but your emotions, your subconscious programming, the climate of your inner world. You might be asking for peace, while your body is still bracing as if life is dangerous. You might be calling for love, while your heart is still armored by old wounds. That contradiction is what creates the static, and the field, with perfect accuracy, reflects the static back to you. But here's the good news. This isn't a punishment, it's precision. Life is showing you your own frequency so that you can become aware of it. Because the moment you shift the signal, the moment you embody the vibration of safety, love, and coherence, the outer world cannot help but reorganize itself to match. I want you to imagine water in a glass. You can paint the outside. You can decorate it. You can even write words on it. But unless you change the water itself, nothing really shifts. That's what many manifestation practices try to do. Paint the glass. True transformation happens when the water changes, when your inner vibration is altered at its source. And yes, that requires a different kind of courage. It requires more than reciting words. It asks you to soften, to let go of control, to allow your body to feel safe again. Because your nervous system is your transmitter. When it rests in trust, it broadcasts coherence. When it lives in survival, it broadcasts fear. And the field, impartial and precise, mirrors whichever signal you are sending. So the invitation isn't to force harder, it's to surrender deeper, to release the anxious grasping that says, if I just try more, I'll finally get there. You are already there. The only step left is aligning. This is not passive. It is powerful. Because alignment is not laziness. It is mastery. Think of a river. It does not strain to reach the ocean. It flows, carried by gravity, by the path carved long before www. When you tune your frequency, life becomes that river. You are no longer the one splashing wildly upstream, begging to arrive. You are carried, not because you gave up, but because you finally remembered the current was always stronger than your struggle. And yes, it may feel unfamiliar at first. The old patterns of striving, of pushing, will whisper, "See, nothing's happening." But look closer, feel deeper. You'll notice the subtle signs, the moments when peace replaces panic, when doors open with less effort, when synchronicities appear like breadcrumbs on your path. These are the first signals that you have tuned in. They are not coincidence, they are confirmation. The game is not about pulling reality closer. It's about matching the signal of what already exists. And when you understand this, you stop waiting. You stop chasing. You stop pleading. You begin resonating. And reality, with quiet precision, begins to respond. So if you've ever wondered why all the affirmations, all the vision boards, all the effort didn't seem to work, the answer is simple. You were speaking words while transmitting fear. You were asking for light while broadcasting darkness. And the universe, in its wisdom, gave you exactly what you were vibrating. Now, you are invited to step into something new, not to try harder, but to remember more deeply. Remember that the frequency of abundance, of love, of peace, is not waiting to be created. It's waiting to be chosen. Chosen in your breath, chosen in your posture, chosen in your stillness. And when you choose it, consistently, tenderly, like nurturing a seed in the soil, the field cannot help but bloom. Not because you forced it, but because you finally tuned into the song that was always playing. That is the shift. That is the quiet revolution of frequency. And it begins not with louder affirmations, but with a softer alignment. The moment you decide to stop dragging life toward you, and instead, allow yourself to vibrate as if it was already yours. 1. The universe doesn't hear words. It hears frequency. You can whisper it. You can shout it. You can repeat it 1,000 times a day. I want to be happy. But if underneath those words, your body is trembling with fear, if your nervous system is quietly bracing itself for the next disappointment, the universe will not respond to the words. It will respond to the vibration that lives beneath them. This is something I had to learn the hard way. For years, I thought I could out-talk my pain. I wrote affirmations on sticky notes and plastered them all over my walls. I spoke them into the mirror every morning. I filled journals with phrases like, "I am abundant. I am safe. I am loved." But in the quiet moments, when the pen was down and the house was still, my chest was tight, my stomach clenched, and my thoughts circled back to lack and fear. And the truth is, that was the signal I was broadcasting. That was the message the field picked up. The universe is like a mirror that cannot be fooled. It does not reflect what you say. It reflects what you are, not the mask, not the performance, but the pulse of your being. It listens to the hum of your nervous system, the rhythm of your breath, the tone of your emotions. And in that sense, there is no pretending. You can say, "I am free." But if every action in your day is rooted in anxiety, the mirror will keep showing you chains. Think of it like a radio transmitter. Imagine you want to hear a symphony playing on 95.5 FM. You can declare all day long, "I'm listening to 95.5. I'm listening to 95.5. But if your dial is actually set to 89.9, you'll only hear static. Or worse, a completely different broadcast. The declaration doesn't matter if the signal isn't aligned. The universe is the same. It doesn't hear your declarations. It hears your frequency. And here's the sobering part. Frequency cannot be counterfeited. You can't wrap fear in pretty words and hope it passes as love. You can't disguise scarcity beneath bold affirmations of abundance. Energy has no interest in appearances. It responds only to coherence. I remember meeting someone who used affirmations with incredible discipline. She woke every morning at 5 a.m. M. Repeated her mantras, burned incense, visualized for an hour. From the outside, it looked like devotion, but underneath, her energy was frantic. Her hands shook as she prayed. Her voice carried a tremor when she declared, "I am calm, I am powerful," and life kept reflecting chaos back to her. Not because she wasn't trying hard enough, but because her frequency was out of tune. The words were polished, but the song beneath them was dissonant. That's when I understood something vital. The universe speaks the language of vibration, not syllables. It translates your emotions, your subconscious stories, the posture of your body. If your shoulders are always hunched, if your breath is always shallow, if your mind is always waiting for the next blow, those are the signals being sent, and they speak louder than anything you could ever write or say. This realization might feel heavy at first. You might be thinking, then, what's the point of affirmations? What's the point of all the practices I've tried? But let me ease that weight. The point of those practices isn't the words themselves, it's whether they help shift the feeling. The only reason a mantra or prayer works is because, for a moment, it changes your internal state. If repeating "I am safe" truly allows your body to soften, your breath to deepen, your nervous system to relax, then yes, that affirmation is powerful. But it's not the sound of the words. It's the frequency of safety they awaken in you. So when I say the universe doesn't hear words, I don't mean they're useless. I mean they're only as effective as the vibration they carry. They are bridges, not destinations. They are reminders, not proof. And once you cross the bridge into the true frequency, the words can fall away. The silence of your being becomes the loudest prayer. Imagine two people walking into a room. One says, "I am confident," but their eyes dart nervously. Their energy feels scattered. The other says nothing at all, but you can feel their grounded presence, steady and calm. Which one do you believe? That's how the universe feels about your words versus your vibration. It listens to the presence, not the proclamation. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to fight for this. You don't have to shout your truth into the void. You simply have to feel it, embody it, breathe it. Like tuning a guitar, once the strings are in harmony, the music flows naturally. You don't have to force it, because it's already aligned. So the next time you're tempted to repeat words like a desperate chant, pause instead. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe deeply. Ask yourself honestly, what frequency am I radiating right now? Not what I'm saying, not what I'm hoping, but what am I actually being? That question alone can shift you more than hours of rehearsed affirmations. I share this not to dismiss the tools you've used, but to remind you that the real power has always been inside you. Words can be guides, but vibration is the destination. When your energy sings the same truth as your lips, the field responds instantly. That's when the mirror clears. That's when your world begins to reflect the frequency of love, peace, or joy that you have truly become. And if that feels daunting, let it also feel freeing, because you don't need perfect words. You don't need to know the right script. You only need to live in coherence. The universe doesn't hear what you say. It hears who you are. And when who you are vibrates with peace, with gratitude, with presence, the entire fabric of reality rearranges to meet you there. 2. The nervous system, the hidden frequency transmitter. There is something most of us overlook when we speak about energy, about vibration, about the life we long to live. We often think of it as something lofty, almost unreachable, floating out there in the spiritual sky. But the truth is, your most powerful transmitter is not far away. It lives inside of you. It is the nervous system, quietly humming, moment by moment, shaping the signal you send into the field. When your nervous system is trapped in survival, It's as if every cell in your body is bracing for impact. The breath becomes shallow. The shoulders tighten. The heart races. Even if you say all the right words, even if you smile and pretend to be fine, the energy you are broadcasting is one of fear. It is the frequency of vigilance, of waiting for the next blow. And because the field mirrors you with perfect accuracy, it responds with more situations that confirm the fear, more experiences that validate the tension. But when the nervous system is safe, when it feels held, when it trusts, the signal shifts completely. The breath deepens, the body softens, the mind clears. In that moment, your energy is coherent. You broadcast harmony, peace, and openness, and the field, again with perfect accuracy, responds to that. Opportunities begin to appear not because you forced them, but because you finally transmitted the frequency that matches them. I learned this in my own darkest nights. For years, I thought I could think my way out of pain. I read books, memorized teachings, repeated mantras until my lips were dry, but nothing changed. Because my body was still living in survival, I would lie awake at night, heart pounding, thoughts racing, and wonder why the universe wasn't listening. What I didn't realize was that it was listening, just not to my words. It was listening to the thunderstorm inside my nervous system. The nervous system is like the control tower of your inner world. You can decorate the plane. You can paint affirmations on its wings. But if the control tower is broadcasting distress signals, the flights will remain grounded. That's why true transformation doesn't begin with mental declarations. It begins with a felt sense of safety in your own body. And safety isn't something you fake. It's not about convincing yourself with logic that you're fine. Safety is biological. It lives in the rhythm of your breath, the softness of your muscles, the calm of your heartbeat. It's what you feel when you let yourself unclench, when you stop holding your breath, when you allow yourself to simply exist without bracing. In those moments, your nervous system says to the universe, "It is safe for me to receive. It is safe for me to expand." And the universe answers. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how different the world feels on a day when you are calm? You get green lights on the road. Strangers smile at you. Problems seem easier to solve. It's not luck. It's resonance. On those days, your nervous system is broadcasting peace, and the world is echoing it back. Now, compare that to the days when you wake up already anxious. The coffee spills, the traffic is heavy, someone snaps at you, and everything feels like resistance. That's not coincidence either. It's the nervous system broadcasting chaos, and life reflecting the same. This is why trauma can hold such a grip on us. Because when the nervous system has learned to live in survival, it keeps sending out signals of fear long after the danger is gone. You may be sitting in a safe room, but inside, your body is screaming, "I'm not safe. I'm not safe." And the field mirrors that cry. The work, then, is not to scold yourself for being afraid, but to gently retrain the nervous system to show it, over and over again, that safety is possible. Every deep breath you take, every moment of grounding, every time you let your shoulders drop instead of tighten, you are teaching your transmitter to shift frequencies. You are telling the control tower the storm has passed. It is safe to send out a new signal. I remember a simple practice that changed everything for me. Each morning, before I reached for my phone, I would sit quietly, place a hand on my chest, and breathe. Slow, steady breaths. At first it felt almost pointless. How could something so simple matter? But gradually, my body began to believe me. The pounding heart softened, the constant bracing eased, and with that shift, my reality shifted. Not because I forced it, but because the message my nervous system was broadcasting finally changed. The nervous system is your hidden frequency transmitter. It cannot be tricked by words, but it can be soothed, retrained, and aligned. And when it is aligned, your entire life aligns. It is like tuning a violin. When the strings are too tight, the sound is harsh, discordant. But when they are tuned with care, the music flows effortlessly. Your body is the same. When it lives in fear, the song is sharp and anxious. When it lives in safety, the song is harmonious. And here's what's remarkable: once your nervous system learns this new song, it begins to prefer it. Harmony becomes more natural than chaos. Safety becomes more familiar than fear. That's when manifestation stops feeling like work and starts feeling like life. So if you've been struggling, if you've been repeating words that never seem to land, perhaps it's not your fault at all. Perhaps it's simply your nervous system asking for safety before it can send a new signal. Listen to it. Care for it. Treat your body not as an obstacle, but as the instrument through which your future plays. Because once it vibrates in coherence, the universe cannot help but join the song. The nervous system doesn't just keep you alive. It is the hidden transmitter, shaping your reality, moment by moment. And when it rests in safety and trust, life itself begins to rest in safety and trust with you. 3. The power of coherence. There comes a moment when you realize that life doesn't respond to fragments. It doesn't answer when the mind says one thing, the heart feels another, and the body acts in a completely different direction. In those moments, your signal is scattered, like trying to tune into a station with 3 different radios, playing 3 different songs at once. What comes out is noise. What comes out is confusion. But when the mind, the heart, and the body begin to send the same message, something extraordinary happens. The noise falls away, the static clears, and suddenly, your energy becomes unmistakable, clear, strong, magnetic. This is coherence. This is alignment. It is the state where every part of you hums the same song, and that song becomes impossible for the universe to ignore. I learned this truth during one of the loneliest chapters of my life. My mind was full of affirmations, phrases about love, abundance, peace, but my heart still carried grief, and my body still carried tension from years of bracing against the unknown. I was fragmented, divided against myself. On paper, I was saying all the right things, but in practice, I was leaking energy in 100 different directions. And life, with its perfect mirror, kept showing me the same fragmentation. Opportunities slipped through. Relationships felt unstable. The world looked as scattered as I felt inside. Coherence changed that. Slowly, tenderly, I began to understand that it wasn't about saying more words or performing more rituals. It was about bringing myself back together. It was about letting my thoughts, my emotions, and my actions line up like instruments in an orchestra, tuned and playing in harmony. Think of it like music. A single violin, playing beautifully, can move the heart, but an entire orchestra, tuned together, creates a wave that fills the room, vibrating in the chest of every listener. That's coherence. It multiplies the power of your signal, not by adding more noise, but by aligning what was already within you. And you've felt it before. You know the difference. You've walked into a room where someone insists they're fine, but every gesture tells you they're not. That's incoherence. Mixed messages. The body and the words at odds. You've also been in the presence of someone who doesn't need to say a word, because their calm, their clarity, their presence radiates in every movement, every glance. That's coherence. The silent magnetism that doesn't beg to be seen, but cannot help being felt. The universe responds to coherence the way a compass responds to true north. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't delay. It aligns instantly, because there is no conflict in the signal. When your mind envisions peace, your heart feels peace. and your body lives peace. The message is undeniable. You're no longer trying to force life to listen. You have become the frequency, and life cannot help but echo it back. I used to think that if I just tried harder, if I just pushed more, if I just declared louder, I could bend reality. But all that effort was like pressing down on a piano with no melody. The sound was harsh, out of tune, and exhausting. When coherence entered, effort fell away. I didn't have to push anymore, because the melody played itself. My energy drew in what matched it, not through struggle, but through resonance. Coherence is not perfection. It is not pretending to always be positive or never feel doubt. It is honesty. It is the courage to let your inner and outer life match. It's choosing thoughts that support the feelings you wish to cultivate, and then acting in ways that reinforce both. It's saying, I value peace, and then allowing your breath, your words, and your choices to flow from that peace. And when coherence happens, people notice. They may not have the words for it, but they feel it. They sense something steady, something trustworthy. That's because coherence creates a field around you. Science has shown that the heart's electromagnetic field extends beyond the body, influencing those nearby. When your heart, mind, and body are aligned, you literally broadcast coherence into the space around you. You become a walking invitation for others to find their own alignment. But let me be clear, coherence is not a performance. It cannot be faked. It is not about forcing yourself into calm while you boil inside. It is about tending to yourself until the calm becomes real, until your thoughts soften, your emotions settle, and your body breathes easily. It's about living in a way that your words, your feelings, and your actions no longer contradict each other. That's when you become magnetic. That's when life begins to mirror you with clarity instead of confusion. I remember the first time I truly tasted coherence. It wasn't in a dramatic moment. It was simple. I was sitting outside, watching the sunset. For once, my mind was quiet, my heart was open, and my body was at rest. And in that stillness, I felt whole. For those minutes, I wasn't trying to be anything. I wasn't arguing with myself. I wasn't demanding proof from the universe. I was simply being real, and everything in me was in agreement. It felt like coming home. That is coherence. And from that place, the smallest action becomes powerful. A single word spoken from coherence carries more weight than 100 words spoken from conflict. A single step taken from coherence moves mountains that years of struggle never could. So, if you've been exhausted by trying, if you've been spinning your wheels with effort and seeing little change, maybe the answer isn't more effort at all. Maybe it's coherence. Maybe it's allowing yourself to come into alignment so that the energy you broadcast is no longer scattered, but unified. Because when you are coherent, you no longer need to chase. You no longer need to beg. You no longer need to perform. You simply radiate. And life, with its flawless mirror, responds. That is the quiet, profound power of coherence. 4. Time is not linear. We've all been taught to see time as a straight line. Yesterday, behind us. Tomorrow ahead of us. And today caught somewhere in the middle. It sounds logical, doesn't it? But if you've ever done the inner work of shifting your frequency, you already know this isn't the whole truth. Because in the quantum field, time does not move in a straight line. It bends, it folds, it spirals. I came to this realization not through theory, but through living. There were seasons in my life when I felt trapped by my past. Old memories would rise up and replay like broken film reels, moments of loss, moments of regret, words I wish I could take back. I thought healing meant erasing those memories, or pretending they didn't hurt anymore. But the more I tried to bury them, the heavier they became. It was only when I began shifting my frequency in the present that something astonishing happened. The past itself began to look different. It wasn't that the facts changed. What happened still happened. The loss was still there. The mistakes were still real. But from a new vibration, I saw them with different eyes. The pain no longer defined me. The story no longer trapped me. It was as if the wound was still visible, but it no longer bled. The frequency had changed, and with it, the meaning of the past dissolved into something lighter. This is why time is not the straight arrow we imagine. You can rise into a higher vibration today and feel as though the chains of 20 years ago suddenly snap loose. You can expand into love in this very moment and discover that old betrayals no longer carry the same sting. It isn't because the events disappeared. It's because you are no longer resonating with the frequency that created and sustained the pain. Think of it like tuning into television channels. At one frequency, the screen shows a scene of heartbreak, shadows, and suffering. But if you turn the dial even slightly, the program changes. You haven't erased the other program. It still exists, but you're no longer watching it, no longer living inside it. That's what happens. When you raise your vibration, you stop watching the channel of your pain. You shift into another reality, where those events lose their grip on you. There was a time in my life when I carried resentment like armor. I thought it protected me from being hurt again. But in truth, it kept me locked in the same cycle, reliving the same old story. Every time I thought about the past, it was as if it was happening all over again. My nervous system didn't know the difference. But one day, after a deep practice of letting go, I realized I could breathe differently while thinking about those same memories. They were no longer knives. They were teachers. They no longer had the power to cut me, because I was no longer vibrating at the level where their sharpness could reach. This is the freedom that comes when you understand time in the quantum sense. You don't have to wait for healing to take years. Healing can happen in an instant, not because the memory disappears, but because your relationship to it shifts. You are no longer the same self who was wounded. You are no longer standing in the same field of vibration. And from this higher ground, even the past begins to look redeemed. I know this may sound strange, but pause and feel into your own life. Haven't there been moments when a memory that once broke you suddenly felt lighter, as if something inside you had grown strong enough to carry it differently? That's the quantum truth of time. Your present vibration reaches back and rewrites the meaning of the past. Just as it reaches forward and reshapes the landscape of the future, science hints at this through the idea of entanglement, that particles once connected remain connected, regardless of distance. I believe our lives work the same way. The self you are today is entangled with the self you were years ago. And when you shift your frequency now, that entanglement ripples backward, softening the pain of your younger self, giving them the safety and compassion they never had then. In that sense, you become your own healer across timelines. You become the one who rescues your younger self from the prison of fear, not by changing the event, but by changing the frequency through which it is remembered. And that shift is enough to change everything. So, when I say time is not linear, I mean this. Your past is not fixed. Your wounds are not eternal. Your future is not distant. All of it is breathing inside the field, responding to the frequency you hold right now. The present is not just a fleeting point on a line. It is the command center from which you rewrite both the story behind you and the path before you. This realization is deeply healing, because it means you are not condemned by what has already happened. It means you don't have to drag the weight of yesterday into today. The vibration you choose in this moment can release the grip of the past and soften the road ahead. I think often of my grandmother's wisdom. She used to say, "When you change how you walk, even the road behind you looks different." At the time, I thought it was just a poetic saying. Now I understand. It was a quantum truth. Your steps today can rewrite the echo of your steps from years ago. So if your past feels heavy, don't fight it. Don't bury it. Don't let it convince you that it owns you. Instead, Rise into a frequency where it loses its power. Breathe safety into your body. Choose love in the present. Open to coherence in your heart. And watch as the past begins to dissolve into something gentler, something wiser, something that no longer holds you hostage. Because time is not linear, and your freedom is not waiting in some distant future. It is here, now, in the vibration you choose to live. 5. The silent frequency. True transformation is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't demand applause or rush to prove that something has changed, like a seed breaking open beneath the soil, or a dawn that slowly washes away the night. Real transformation happens in silence. You don't have to shout it. You don't have to repeat affirmations until your throat aches. You don't need to convince the world that you are different. When your inner signal steadies, the outer world rearranges on its own, as naturally as a still lake reflecting the sky above it. I used to think change had to be loud, that if I didn't declare it boldly, post it for everyone to see, or convince myself with endless words, it wasn't real. But that kind of effort came from insecurity. It came from doubt, from the part of me that wasn't sure the change was actually happening. And so, it needed constant proof. The truth I've since discovered is that the most powerful frequency is silent. It doesn't need to perform. It simply vibrates. Think of someone you've met who carries real peace. They don't walk into a room proclaiming, "I am calm. I am calm. I am calm." They don't have to. You feel it in their presence. Their very being communicates what words never could. That's the silent frequency. It radiates without effort. It speaks without sound. When your inner world is in turmoil, you might try to cover it up with noise. You talk more. You do more. You try to fill the space so no one notices the unrest inside. But silence doesn't need to cover anything. Silence doesn't hide. Silence comes when there is nothing left to prove. And that's why it is magnetic. I remember a season of my life when I was desperate to convince myself that I was healed. I journaled every morning. I filled notebooks with affirmations. I told friends, "I'm fine now. I'm better. I've moved on." But inside, I was still carrying the storm. The truth is, the storm only calmed when I stopped trying to prove anything. When I sat in stillness, let the tears come, and allowed myself to feel, in that quiet acceptance, something shifted. I didn't need to tell myself over and over that I was okay. I simply was. The silent frequency had begun to settle in me. And here's the beauty. The universe responds to that silence more than it ever responds to noise. Because the silent frequency is steady. It isn't mixed with desperation or doubt. It isn't rushed or forced. It is coherent. And coherence is irresistible. When your energy is steady, the field mirrors it back with clarity. Imagine a pond. If the surface is constantly disturbed, waves, splashing, agitation, you cannot see the reflection of the sky. But when it is still, even for a moment, the entire heavens are reflected with perfect clarity. That's what happens when your frequency steadies into silence. Life reflects the truth of who you are. This silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the fullness of presence, of being whole within yourself. It doesn't mean you stop speaking or stop doing things. It means that your actions no longer come from panic or from the need to convince. They flow naturally, like the branches of a tree growing without effort, because the roots are already nourished. The silent frequency is the frequency of trust. Trust that you don't need to push the river. It will flow on its own. Trust that you don't need to scream for the sun to rise. It will rise anyway. Trust that when you align your inner world, the outer world has no choice but to respond. And this trust grows slowly, quietly, one breath at a time, one moment of surrender at a time. You may not even notice it at first. It may feel like nothing is happening. But then one day you realize you no longer react with the same fear. You no longer carry the same weight. the people around you begin to sense something different, even if you haven't said a word. That is the silent frequency at work. It is also the frequency of humility, because it doesn't need recognition. It doesn't seek credit. It simply is. And ironically, it is often when you stop trying to prove yourself that life finally begins to shift in undeniable ways. The job offer comes, the relationship deepens, the opportunity arrives, not because you shouted the loudest, but because your vibration was steady enough to draw it in. I once knew a man who rarely spoke of his spiritual journey. He didn't share affirmations. He didn't make big declarations, but being around him was like sitting next to a fire on a cold night. Warmth radiated from him without words. People trusted him, leaned toward him, found comfort in his presence. That's what happens when the frequency is silent. It doesn't just change your life. It changes the lives of everyone around you. So if you find yourself exhausted from trying to say the right things, trying to prove your growth, trying to convince yourself that you've changed, perhaps it's time to let go of the noise. Perhaps it's time to rest in the silence of being, to let your energy speak louder than your voice, to trust that when the signal inside you is stable, you don't have to beg reality to respond. It simply will. The silent frequency is not about pretending nothing is wrong. It's about finding the place inside you that knows you are already whole. It's about living from that knowing, without needing to announce it. And from there, life begins to mirror back the truth of your wholeness. Because in the end, transformation is not a performance. It's not an audience waiting to be impressed. It's the quiet shift within, the stillness that comes when you no longer fight yourself. And in that stillness, the world aligns. 6. Becoming, not waiting. One of the greatest traps we fall into is the belief that we must wait for evidence before we can trust. We tell ourselves, when the money arrives, then I'll feel abundant. When love comes, then I'll feel worthy. When life proves it, then I'll finally believe. But that is not how reality responds. That is not how energy works. Waiting keeps you in waiting. It keeps the vibration of not yet alive. And the universe, with perfect accuracy, reflects it back. Becoming is different. Becoming means you live as though the reality you desire is already here, not as a performance, not as pretending, but as a practice of embodying the frequency now, so deeply that it becomes more natural than the old state you once called normal. I had to learn this slowly. There were years when I was waiting for life to give me permission. I told myself, when my circumstances improve, then I'll finally relax. When I see proof that I'm safe, then I'll let go of fear. But the proof never came. Not because life was cruel, but because life was mirroring my vibration of waiting. I was holding the frequency of lack, of uncertainty, of postponement. And so reality postponed itself. Again and again. The shift began when I stopped bargaining with the universe and started living as if the shift had already happened. I remember waking one morning and asking myself, what would I do today if I already believed I was free? How would I carry myself if abundance was already mine? How would I breathe if love was already here? And I practiced those answers. I walked through the day with my shoulders back, my breath deeper, my choices calmer. Nothing dramatic happened that day. No miracle check arrived in the mail. But something subtle, powerful, undeniable happened inside me. For the first time, I wasn't waiting, I was becoming. And life felt different. Not because the external world had changed yet, but because my inner world had, and eventually, the outer world had no choice but to follow. Becoming is not about faking it until you make it. That phrase always felt dishonest to me, like putting on a mask and hoping no one notices what's behind it. Becoming is about practicing a new truth until it settles into your bones. It's about breathing like someone who already trusts, even when trust feels fragile. It's about taking small steps from the place you want to be. even when the evidence hasn't arrived yet. Think of it like training your body in a new posture. If you've been hunched for years, standing tall feels awkward at first. It doesn't feel natural. But if you practice, day after day, eventually the tallness feels more real than the hunch. That's what becoming is. It's practicing a new energetic posture until it becomes your natural state. The reason this works is because the universe doesn't respond to what you hope will happen. It responds to what you are being. If you are being someone who is still waiting, then waiting is what life reflects. If you are being someone who is already living the truth of abundance, peace, or love, then that is what life responds to. The mirror cannot lie. I often think of it like gardening. When you plant a seed, you don't stand over the soil demanding proof before you water it. You don't say, "I'll only believe it's growing once I see the sprout." You water it anyway, because you trust the process. That's becoming. It's choosing to live in alignment with the unseen, knowing it is already in motion, even before you see the first green shoot break through the soil. And yes, becoming requires courage, because the old self will resist. The mind will whisper, "See, nothing has changed. You're just pretending." But the truth is, every great change feels like pretending at first. Every new way of being feels unfamiliar until it becomes natural. It is not dishonesty. It is practice. It is devotion. It is the choice to inhabit the frequency of your future until the present can no longer deny it. I remember walking into a coffee shop once, still broke, still uncertain about the future, but choosing to sit there as if I belonged, as if abundance was already mine. I ordered my coffee slowly, with presence. Instead of rushing in fear, I sat with calm, instead of scanning the room for danger. And something extraordinary happened. A stranger struck up a conversation. An opportunity emerged. And that day became a turning point in my life. Not because I forced it, but because I became the version of myself who could receive it. Becoming is powerful, because it collapses the need for proof. It shifts you into the frequency of trust. And trust is magnetic. It doesn't beg Lisette. It doesn't chase. It simply radiates. And life responds to that radiation, like a tuning fork, vibrating in harmony with the song you are already singing. So if you've been waiting for the right time, waiting for evidence, waiting for permission, let this be your reminder. You don't need to wait. You don't need proof to begin. You can become now, not by pretending, but by practicing, not by forcing, but by aligning. Because when you stop waiting and start becoming, something quiet yet undeniable happens. The old self loses its grip, the new self takes root, and reality, precise and faithful, bends to match the frequency you are living. You are not meant to be someone who waits. You are meant to be someone who embodies, someone who becomes, and in that becoming, the universe responds, not to your hopes, not to your words, but to the truth of who you already are. 7. Frequency leaks. Every one of us carries a certain vibration, a signal that life reflects back. But here's something many of us overlook. It's not always the big decisions that shape our frequency. More often, it's the little leaks, the unnoticed places where energy seeps out of us, leaving us drained, scattered, and pulled back into old patterns. You felt it before. You wake up calm, centered, maybe even hopeful, and then you check the news, and suddenly the world feels heavy. Or you step into a conversation with someone whose words are sharp, full of drama, and you leave feeling tense without knowing why. Or maybe you hold on to an old memory, something painful that you replay again and again. And each time, it's as if a little more of your light slips away. These are frequency leaks. When you're trying to maintain a new vibration, whether it's peace, joy, abundance, or love, these leaks matter. Because even if you spend an hour in meditation each morning, a few unchecked leaks throughout the day can quietly undo the coherence you've cultivated. It's like trying to heat your house in the winter while leaving the windows wide open. The warmth is there, but it slips away before it can transform the space. I know this truth intimately. There was a time when I thought my inner work wasn't working. I journaled, I breathed, I prayed, and for a while, I felt aligned. But by evening, I was exhausted, irritable, pulled back into fear. I thought I was failing. The truth was simpler. I was leaking. I was feeding my nervous system a steady diet of fear through the news, replaying conversations in my head, and holding on to objects in my home that still carried the imprint of old pain. Without realizing it, I was leaving all my windows open, wondering why the house wouldn't stay warm. Frequency leaks are subtle, but they're powerful. They are the little choices that either support or sabotage your vibration. That doesn't mean you need to live in a bubble or avoid the world. It means you need to become conscious of the exchanges you make. Because every exchange, every word you speak, every story you dwell on, every environment you step into, is an exchange of energy. Think of your vibration like a precious flame. You wouldn't leave a candle burning under a drafty window. You'd shield it, protect it, so the flame could grow strong and steady. Your frequency deserves the same care. Protecting it isn't selfish. It's sacred stewardship. I learned to start small. Instead of scrolling endlessly through headlines designed to stir fear, I limited my exposure, not because I didn't care about the world, but because I realized that drowning in fear doesn't heal the world. It only weakens me. I began curating what I allowed in. Music that lifted me, conversations that nourished me, spaces that felt alive with light. And little by little, the leaks closed. My energy held steady longer. My peace lasted deeper into the day. But closing leaks isn't just about avoiding what drains you. It's also about releasing what no longer belongs. Some of the most powerful leaks come from memories and attachments we haven't let go of. That old letter you keep hidden in a drawer, the shirt that carries the scent of someone who left, the constant retelling of a story where you were wronged. These things keep you tethered to a frequency that no longer serves you. They whisper old vibrations back into your field, pulling you down into timelines you've already outgrown. Letting go can feel like loss at first. But it's not about erasing the past. It's about closing the leaks that keep you living in it. When you release what no longer matches your vibration, you reclaim your energy. You give your nervous system the space to rest, to stabilize, to broadcast the signal of who you are becoming rather than who you were. And here's the truth. Life will always bring challenges. People will speak words that sting. The world will show you headlines that make your heart ache. You cannot control everything that comes your way, but you can choose how porous you are. You can choose whether you leave the windows wide open, or whether you close them gently, allowing the warmth you've cultivated to remain within you. Protecting your frequency isn't about living in denial. It's about living with intention. It's about recognizing that your energy is precious, and that every moment, you are in dialogue with the field. Every leak is a message. Every boundary you set is also a message, and the field listens. I sometimes think of it like tending a garden. You can plant the most beautiful seeds, water them faithfully, and give them sunlight. But if you don't also pull the weeds, if you don't protect the soil from pests, the garden will struggle. Your vibration is the same. Tending it means not just adding more light, but also removing what drains it. So if you've been working hard to shift your frequency but feel like nothing is sticking, maybe it isn't that you're doing something wrong. Maybe it's simply that you're leaking. Maybe it's time to notice the little things, the conversations, the habits, the memories that keep pulling you back, and to gently, lovingly close those windows. Because when the leaks are sealed, the warmth stays, the flame steadies, and your frequency, once fragile, grows strong enough to light not only your own path, but the path of those around you. 8. The true principle of attraction. For so long, we were taught to imagine attraction as if we were pulling something toward us. We were told to picture our dreams as distant objects, waiting for us to drag them into our lives with enough effort, focus, or sheer willpower. But the truth, simple and profound, is that you don't pull anything toward you. You synchronize with it. Wealth, love, peace. These aren't prizes floating out there in the distance, waiting for you to prove your worth. They already exist. They're here, alive, pulsing quietly on a different frequency, and like tuning into a radio station. The only question is, have you adjusted your dial? Are you resonating with the broadcast that's already been playing all along? This was a revelation that changed everything for me. There was a time when I believed that if I just worked harder, visualized longer, repeated affirmations more faithfully, I could attract the life I wanted. But no matter how much I tried, it always seemed just out of reach. I was exhausted from chasing, from pulling from believing that reality was something I had to drag into place. And then I began to notice something subtle. On days when I felt calm, grateful, or deeply present, even if nothing on the outside had changed, life responded differently. Small doors opened, people showed up in ways that felt supportive. Even coincidences seemed to align in my favor. It wasn't that I had suddenly earned those things. It was that my frequency had shifted, and with it, my reality. I hadn't attracted them like a magnet pulling metal. I had tuned into the wavelength where they already existed. Think of it this way. Imagine standing in a room with 100 different songs playing on hidden frequencies. You can't hear them all at once, but they're all there, vibrating in the air. The moment you adjust your radio to the right station, the music becomes clear. You didn't create the music. You didn't pull it closer. You simply synchronized with it. That is the true principle of attraction, and it applies to every area of life. If you long for love, but carry the frequency of fear, the signal you're broadcasting is, I am not safe. The field mirrors that back, not because it is cruel, but because it is precise. When you shift into the frequency of openness, of worthiness, of safety, love reveals itself, not because it was absent before, but because you finally tuned into its channel. If you're seeking abundance while vibrating with scarcity, the field hears the scarcity. It reflects back circumstances that keep you struggling. But the moment you shift into gratitude, into the felt sense of enoughness, abundance begins to appear in unexpected ways. Again, not because you pulled it from thin air, but because you tuned into the broadcast of sufficiency that was always there. And peace. How many of us chase peace as if it were some distant horizon? We tell ourselves, when I fix this problem, when life finally calms down, then I'll be at peace. But peace is not waiting on the horizon. It is here, in this very breath, vibrating at a frequency you can choose. The question is not, when will peace arrive, but am I tuned to it now? This principle is liberating because it removes the need to fight. You don't have to convince the universe. You don't have to bargain with it. You don't have to exhaust yourself proving you're ready. You only need to adjust the frequency you live in. And once you do, life cannot help but match it. I know this may sound too simple, but pause and think of your own life. Haven't there been days when you woke up already irritated, and the whole day unfolded in irritation? Traffic, difficult conversations, endless obstacles. And haven't there been days when you woke up light, grateful, and somehow everything seemed smoother? Doors opened, people smiled, green lights appeared on the road. That isn't coincidence. That is resonance. That is the true principle of attraction playing out in real time. The greatest mistake we make is believing that attraction is about wanting harder, but the field doesn't respond to wanting. It responds to being. Wanting says, I don't have it yet, Bang says, "This is who I am now." And the universe reflects being every single time. So if you've been waiting, hoping, pleading, maybe it's time to stop pulling and start tuning. Maybe it's time to ask yourself, what frequency am I living in right now? Does it match the life I desire? Or the fear I've been taught to hold? Because the answer to that question determines what the mirror of reality will show you. I remember the day I truly understood this. I stopped asking, when will my life change? And started asking, how can I align with the life that's already here? And that single shift changed the way I carried myself. I breathed differently. I walked differently. I spoke with more presence. And slowly, gently, my outer life began to match my inner state. The true principle of attraction is not about force. It is about alignment. It is about remembering that everything you long for already exists in the field. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to prove you're worthy of it. You simply need to tune yourself to the station where it is already playing. And when you do, you'll find that wealth, love, peace, they were never far away. They were waiting, patiently, for you to stop pulling and start resonating. 9. The frequency bridge. There is a space in every transformation that tests us more than any other. It is the in-between, the stretch of road where you have shifted something inside yourself. But the outer world hasn't yet caught up. You feel different. You carry yourself differently. Your thoughts are lighter. Your heart is steadier. But when you look around, life still looks the same. Old circumstances linger. Old patterns still appear. And it is here, in this quiet delay, that many people give up. I call this space the frequency bridge. It is the bridge between who you used to be and who you are becoming. And like any bridge, it can feel uncertain, suspended above ground, with no guarantee of what's on the other side. But the truth is, this bridge is not punishment. It is proof. Proof that the inner shift is real, even if the outer hasn't mirrored it yet. I remember the first time I crossed such a bridge. I had been working deeply on my energy, shifting out of fear into trust. Inside, I felt calmer than I had in years, but my life didn't reflect it yet. Bills still came. Old conflicts still arose. Part of me wondered, what's the point? Nothing's changing. And for a moment, I almost slipped back into the old self, the one that believed effort was wasted unless it brought instant results. But something in me stayed. Something whispered, hold the frequency, keep walking the bridge. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. A call came through, a door opened, a relationship softened. It was as if the world had been rearranging itself beneath the surface, like roots growing before the sprout breaks through the soil. This is the essence of the frequency bridge. When you shift your vibration, life must respond. But the outer layer takes time to reorganize. Just like a seed germinating underground, transformation often begins where the eye cannot see. And if you dig up the soil too soon, searching for proof, you risk killing what was already growing. Many people give up at this point because they mistake the delay for absence. They think, if I don't see it yet, it must not be working. But that's like planting a tree and walking away because you don't see branches after a week. The bridge asks for trust. It asks for patience. It asks you to keep becoming, even when the evidence hasn't arrived. And here's the paradox. The bridge is often where your new frequency is tested most. Old triggers show up not to drag you backward, but to see if you'll respond from the new self or the old. Each choice is an anchor, either anchoring you deeper into the vibration you've claimed or slipping you back into the one you left behind. Think of it like learning to walk again after an injury. At first, your legs are shaky. The path feels unstable. You're not fully confident in your stride, but every step you take strengthens the muscles, retrains the body, reinforces the new way of moving. The frequency bridge is the same. It gives you the chance to practice holding the new vibration until it becomes second nature. I've seen this in others as well. A dear friend once decided to step into abundance. She shifted her inner dialogue, practiced gratitude, and stopped feeding the old narrative of lack. Inside, she felt different, lighter, freer. But for months, her bank account didn't show it. She was tempted to abandon the practice, to declare it wasn't working. But she stayed on the bridge. She kept showing up with the energy of abundance, even when the numbers told her otherwise. And then, seemingly all at once, things shifted. A new opportunity appeared, income multiplied. But what she realized was that the shift hadn't been sudden at all. It had been building the entire time, quietly, like water gathering behind a dam, until the moment it spills over. That's what the bridge feels like. Quiet build-up, inner alignment forming the foundation for outer reality. It's invisible, until suddenly, it isn't. So if you find yourself in this place, in between the old and the new, don't despair. Don't assume nothing is happening. Something is happening. Just beneath the surface, the soil is cracking. The roots are strengthening. The structure is being built in the unseen. Your only task is to keep walking, to keep holding the frequency, to keep trusting the bridge. And trust doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. Trust means allowing yourself to rest in the knowing that alignment always precedes evidence. It means remembering that reality is slower to rearrange than vibration. But rearrange it must. The bridge is sacred ground. It is where you prove to yourself that you are no longer living by the evidence of the past, but by the resonance of your present. It is where you learn that faith is not wishful thinking, but a lived frequency. So if you're here now, take heart. You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are simply crossing, and when the outer world finally catches up, and it will, you'll realize that the bridge was not a delay. It was the training ground that made you ready for the life you were tuning into. Because in the end, the frequency bridge is not about waiting for something to appear. It's about becoming the person who can hold it once it does. 10. True manifestation is integration. For much of my life, I thought manifestation meant pulling something in from the outside. I imagined it as if I were reaching into the world, trying to grab hold of wealth, love, peace, things that felt far away, things I thought I didn't have. But what I came to understand, after walking through both disappointment and awakening, is that true manifestation is not about pulling at all. It is about remembering. It is about integrating into the deepest part of yourself, where every frequency already exists. When you look at manifestation as reaching outward, it always feels exhausting. There's a sense of chasing, of straining, of waiting for something out there to finally arrive. And with every moment you wait, you reinforce the feeling that you don't have it yet. But when you see manifestation for what it really is, a journey inward, the pressure dissolves. You realize you are not trying to acquire something new. You are uncovering what has always been there. Think of it like this. Imagine a musician searching for the perfect note. They may travel the world looking for instruments, trying to discover a sound that feels right. But the note itself is not out there. It is already vibrating in the strings, waiting for the right touch to bring it to life. That's what manifestation is. It's not importing something foreign. It's striking the chord within you that was always tuned to that frequency. This is why true manifestation feels less like striving and more like returning home. It's the sense of remembering a song you used to know but had forgotten, only to hear it again and realize you can hum along without effort. The wealth you seek, the love you long for, the peace you desire, they are not strangers. They are familiar, ancient, woven into your very being. I learned this in one of the most surprising ways. For years, I longed for love. I thought I needed someone to come and give it to me, to fill the emptiness I felt inside. But when I began the work of aligning my frequency, something unexpected happened. Before any relationship appeared, I began to feel love in myself, in my breath, in my body. In the quiet mornings when I sat in stillness, I felt it rising like warmth in my chest. And when love finally did show up in the form of another person, it wasn't shocking. It was familiar, because I had already integrated that frequency within me. They didn't bring it to me. They simply mirrored what I had already remembered. This is the essence of integration. You stop looking outside yourself for proof and start embodying the frequency within. You stop chasing and start allowing. And the more you integrate, the less desperate you feel for the outer world to change, because you are already living the truth of it inside. But integration isn't just about feelings. It's about becoming whole. For so many of us, life fractures us into pieces. We carry old wounds, forgotten parts of ourselves, abandoned dreams. We try to manifest from only one part, the mind wanting abundance, while the heart still aches with unworthiness, while the body still braces for loss. True manifestation requires all of you. It requires gathering the scattered pieces and bringing them home. It is the moment when your mind, heart, and body speak the same truth. And that truth becomes the vibration the universe responds to. And this is why manifestation is not about pretending. It's not about forcing yourself to think positive while ignoring the parts of you that are still hurting. Integration means sitting with those hurting parts, holding them with compassion, and inviting them into the light. It's about saying, even here, even in this pain, I am whole. Even in this fear, I am loved. And as those parts come home, your frequency steadies. The leaks close. The noise quiets, and what remains is coherence, the true signal of who you are. When you live from that signal, manifestation is no longer about adding something new. It becomes a natural unfolding. The outer world adjusts to mirror your integrated state, because it has no choice. You're no longer vibrating from lack or division. You are vibrating from wholeness. I think of it like a tree. A tree doesn't try to manifest leaves in the spring. It doesn't chase them. It simply roots itself deeply into the earth, draws nourishment, integrates sunlight and water into every cell. And the leaves come, they were always in its blueprint, already written in its being. The manifestation of green leaves is not an achievement. It is an expression of what the tree already is. The same is true for us. When we integrate, when we root into our truest self, the abundance, the love, the peace, they bloom naturally because they were always coded into us. This truth is both simple and radical because it means you are not broken. It means you are not missing anything. It means the life you long for is not something you must run after. It is something you must remember, something you must embody, something you must allow. So if you've been struggling, chasing, pleading with the universe for your desires, maybe the invitation isn't to try harder. Maybe it's to come home, to sit in the quiet of your own being, and remember that everything you seek is already vibrating in you. That manifestation isn't about pulling anything in, but about integrating what was there all along. Because true manifestation is not acquisition. It is remembrance. It is integration. And the moment you live from that place, the universe no longer feels like something you must chase. It feels like a mirror, faithfully reflecting the truth you have finally embraced within yourself. 11. The power of micro choices. So often, we imagine that transformation has to be dramatic. We think it requires a grand ceremony, a breakthrough so big that the whole world notices at once. But life doesn't usually work that way. Change rarely arrives with fireworks. More often, it comes quietly, almost invisibly, in the small decisions we make every day. It is in those micro choices, the way you take a breath when you're anxious, the way you respond to a message, the way you place one foot in front of the other, with presence, that your entire vibration is rewritten. For years, I kept waiting for the big moment. I thought one day I would wake up and everything would be different. I pictured a turning point so undeniable that there would be no going back. But what I found instead was that real change happened in moments no one else saw. In the pause before reacting to anger, in the choice to soften my shoulders instead of tensing them, in the gentle decision to breathe more deeply rather than hold my breath. None of those moments looked grand from the outside, but together, they built a foundation strong enough to carry me into a new way of being. The universe listens to frequency, not spectacle. It isn't impressed by how dramatic your rituals look, or how loudly you declare your intentions. It responds to the signal you are broadcasting in the smallest of moments, because those are the moments that reveal who you really are. You can stand on a stage and speak about love, but if in the quiet of your own home, you treat yourself with harshness, the universe hears the harshness. You can perform abundance in front of others, but if you spend your days obsessing over lack, the universe hears the lack. Every choice, however small, is a note in the song of your vibration. This is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it reminds us that there are no shortcuts. You can't override your daily choices with one big performance. But empowering because it means you don't have to wait for something enormous to happen before you shift your life. You can begin now, with something as small as a single breath. I think of it like drops of water. A single drop seems insignificant, but drop after drop after drop fills the jar. Your vibration is shaped the same way. Every small choice, choosing presence instead of distraction, choosing kindness instead of judgment, choosing gratitude instead of complaint, adds another drop. And over time, those drops overflow into a completely new reality. I remember a time when I felt powerless to change. Everything seemed too big, too heavy. But then I gave myself permission to focus only on the smallest steps. Each morning, I asked myself, what's one gentle choice I can make today that aligns with the life I want to live? Sometimes it was as simple as going for a walk without my phone. Sometimes it was pausing before reacting to a hurtful comment. Sometimes it was just drinking a glass of water with gratitude. These moments seemed tiny, but they began to add up. And slowly, I noticed something extraordinary. My frequency shifted. The world around me started to feel lighter, not because it had changed overnight, but because my small choices were rewriting the signal I sent into the field. This is why micro-choices matter. They are like threads weaving together the fabric of your reality. If you change just one thread, maybe it doesn't look like much, but change enough threads, and suddenly the entire pattern is transformed. And here's what's beautiful. Micro-choices don't require perfection. You don't have to get it right every time. Even one conscious breath in the middle of a storm sends a new signal. Even one moment of gratitude in the midst of struggle plants a seed of abundance. The universe doesn't measure how flawlessly you perform. It responds to the direction of your vibration. And every small choice and alignment nudges you toward coherence. Sometimes people ask, but isn't that too small to matter? My answer is always, small is everything. Because small is repeatable, small is sustainable. You can carry a small practice into every moment of your life. And when you do, you stop waiting for transformation to arrive. You realize you are already living it. Breath by breath, step by step. Think of the person who tends a garden. They don't plant once and walk away, expecting instant abundance. They return daily. They water. They pull weeds. They pay attention to the soil. None of those actions seem dramatic, but together they create the conditions for life to bloom. Your vibration is the same. Micro-choices are the tending of your inner garden. They are the daily water, the steady care, the quiet devotion that allows your frequency to flourish. So, if you've been waiting for some huge moment to prove you've changed, let me tell you, your change is already happening. It's in the way you chose to breathe before responding to that difficult conversation yesterday. It's in the way you noticed beauty in something ordinary today. It's in the way you are choosing, right now, to pay attention to your energy rather than ignore it. These choices are not small. They are everything. Because life doesn't transform in a single leap. It transforms in countless small steps that eventually carry you across the bridge into a new reality. And when you look back, you'll realize it wasn't a grand ritual that changed you. It was the steady devotion of your micro-choices, each one aligning you closer to the life you were always meant to live, becoming the frequency, living as the proof. The world doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to who you are. That's a truth I had to learn again and again, often the hard way. I could speak the right words. I could even fool myself for a little while. But life always mirrored the frequency I was carrying deep inside. And at first, that truth was difficult to accept. But over time, I began to see it as the most liberating thing of all, because it meant I didn't have to perform anymore. I didn't have to convince the universe of my worthiness. I didn't have to shout to be heard. All I had to do was become the evidence. Live as the version of myself I long to be. And when you do that, something extraordinary happens. The universe stops feeling like an opponent you're trying to persuade. It becomes a mirror, faithfully reflecting back the vibration you've chosen to live. It doesn't argue, it doesn't delay. It simply organizes itself around the frequency you embody. This is why the greatest shift comes when you stop chasing proof and instead become the proof. Imagine no longer waiting for life to confirm your abundance, but living as though abundance already flows through you. Imagine no longer waiting for love to arrive, but breathing love into each moment, into each step you take. Imagine no longer waiting for peace, but letting your very presence radiate peace to everyone around you. At that point, life has no choice but to respond. And here's the paradox: when you stop forcing attraction, life begins to flow toward you naturally, not because you dragged it in, but because you stopped sending mixed signals. You aligned, you remembered, you allowed. That's when synchronicities appear. Doors open, relationships deepen, and opportunities seem to fall into your path, not by magic, not by coincidence, but by resonance. I know this sounds simple, maybe even too simple, but if you look back on your own life, you'll see it's always been this way. Think about the seasons when you were grounded, when you felt grateful, when you were living from a place of trust. Didn't life feel smoother then? Didn't people treat you differently? Didn't opportunities show up with more ease? That wasn't luck. That was alignment. And the same is true in the opposite direction. When you were stuck in fear, when you were bracing against the world, didn't everything feel like resistance that wasn't punishment? That was the field, responding to the signal you were sending. The beauty of this truth is that you are not powerless. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a participant in resonance. Every breath, every thought, every choice is a chance to tune yourself closer to the life you desire. And you don't have to wait for the evidence to begin. You don't need permission. You can begin now, by becoming the frequency you want to see reflected. And let me say this clearly. You don't need to strain. You don't need to force. You don't need to attract in the way the world has taught you, like chasing after something that doesn't want to come. The life you want already exists. It's here, humming quietly, waiting for you to match its song. And when you do, it will rise up to meet you. I often imagine it like a dance. Life is the music, and you are the dancer. When you're out of step, it feels clumsy, chaotic. But when you let yourself move in rhythm, there's no effort. The music carries you. That's what coherence feels like. That's what alignment feels like. You're not trying to force the song. You're simply letting your body remember its rhythm. And that's really what this whole journey is about. Remembering who you are beneath the noise. beneath the fear, beneath the layers of doubt. Because the truth is, you've never been missing. The abundance, the love, the peace, they've been within you all along. Manifestation is not about creating something new. It's about remembering and embodying what was always yours. So here, at the end of this journey, I want to remind you, you don't need to attract. You don't need to prove. You don't need to fight. All you need to do is remember, align, and allow. From that moment, everything changes. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped resisting what was always meant for you. When you live this way, the universe doesn't feel distant anymore. It feels like a mirror, reflecting back your highest self. And the more you embody that self, the clearer the reflection becomes. Until one day, you look around and realize you're no longer chasing anything. You've become it. And when you become it, when you embody the highest frequency of who you are, the universe has no choice but to arrange itself around you. Not because you demanded it, but because resonance is law. So let this be the truth you carry forward. The world does not respond to your words. It responds to your frequency. And when you choose to stop waiting, stop forcing, stop proving, and instead become, life will unfold around you with a grace that feels like home. Because you don't have to go searching. You don't have to attract. You only need to remember who you already are and live from there. The rest, inevitably, will follow.